Hello and welcome, you beautiful bookish people. Today's good day because I get to talk about 10 of my most favorite reads of 2025. I cannot believe that this is the last video. I will do this entire year. This crazy has been a year. Nope. This year has been crazy. I started my YouTube channel in January with my Onyx Storm vlog, and look where we are now, like 83 something books read later. Oh my god. I cannot wait to get into these, so let's get started. Now, these are not ranked from like number 10 to number 1. These are in no particular order because I couldn't do it. I could not rate these and put them in a specific order because I love them all so much. I've read so many good books this year, so I was like, there's no way in hell that I'm going to be able to try to make a list of 10 books that are in order. I had a hard time even making a list of 10. I think there were a little bit more than 10 on my list, and I had to go through and take some off, and it hurt so bad. So keep that in mind. The first book that I want to talk about is City of Gods and Monsters by Kayla Edwards. I don't know if there are enough words in the English language to describe the way that I feel for these characters and this story. This is an urban fantasy, and this book is what made me fall in love with urban fantasies. Sure, you have Crescent City. I love Crescent City with my whole heart. I think all 3 books were 5 stars. However, I didn't get the feeling from Crescent City afterwards that I was like, oh my god, this genre is totally for me. But this book, this series specifically, made me want to read more urban fantasies. It had me fall in love with this type of storytelling, and honestly, it's kind of a strange feeling because I don't read like contemporary romance or anything like that because of the fact that sometimes the world feels too close to home and I like to read to escape. But this does it in such a way where it's modern enough that they have like phones, guns, other technology and advancements and things like that that are like our world, but it is presented in a way that it still feels like this is a fantasy world at its heart because of the unique magic. And there are so many different unique types of magic wielders in this universe. I really enjoyed that about this book, getting to learn about all the different types of dark slayers, which are these like magical bounty hunter kind of people, but they all have a different type of magic, how it all works together. The overarching plot is so huge, and I think I said it in my last video when I was talking about this book. This was on my book tag for a book that I would love to reread, and it's just because you don't even get the tip of the iceberg in the first, well, okay, you get a little bit obviously in the first book, but you don't know the scale and the intensity of this story and the characters until you keep reading. I think this series just keeps getting better and better every single book you read, and by the 4th book, it is just non-stop. This is going to be, I think, 5 books. I think she said it was, I could be totally wrong. I think she said it was 5 books and then maybe a prequel, so technically 6, but it's confirmed for 5, so at least for this story, and I cannot wait to finish the series. Okay, I say that and I'm like, I really don't want to leave this world. I don't want to leave these characters. I love them so much, but it just could not be on my top 10 of the year. This next book is Reign of Shadows and Endings by Melissa K. Roerick. This is another, I would say it's a modern fantasy. I don't think it's technically an urban fantasy necessarily, but it does have those modern elements. I think this story is a very unique way of doing a dark fantasy romance. Like, the romance in this is so twisted, and at first I was like, I don't know if I'm into this, but definitely throughout the series, because of the characters and their dynamics, I got it. It clicked in my brain. But these characters are messy. The situation is messy. I've not read a magic system close to this in terms of like how their magic is set up within the society. And just to give you a little bit of the tip of the iceberg, this girl girl Tessa is chosen to be a legacy's source, which basically a legacy is another sort of magical being in the universe. And being a source means that the legacy can use her power for himself, which I think is a really interesting, it makes for a really interesting power dynamic and politics in this. And our main character has a very traumatic past. She's an orphan. She's had a very rough upbringing. And I think the details of her story are not very common in female main characters. And a lot of people, they don't like her, but I'm sitting here like, you have to go in with an open mind and know that she is not your stereotypical FMC, and there's a reason for that. She is very sporadic and impulsive, and she makes decisions just because she's feeling it, kind of thing, and it makes the plot so interesting. And I love how this is connected to her other series called Lady of Darkness, which I'm going to talk about in just a second. But I just love the way that Melissa wrote this story, and it is only 4 books. They are big books, but it is 4 books completed series. I just feel like this book is such a special journey with the main character and her mental health. It's so powerful. And just to give you a teeny tiny taste into it, there's a line that says, "No one can steal your thunder if you are the storm. Be the f***ing storm, Tessa." I can't with this book. Now, obviously, I have to talk about Lady of Darkness by Melissa K. Rorick next. I never shut up about this book. This is one of my favorite reads of the entire year. Almost, probably, I would say, the favorite. I don't know. I said Book of Azrael was my favorite in my last book tag video, but I'm starting to think maybe I was wrong and it was this. I don't know. Now, I do recommend that if you're gonna read either Lady of Darkness or Legacy series, I would definitely recommend that you read Lady of Darkness first, because I love Reign of Shadows and Endings so much, and I think it's very, very different than what you're gonna find in Lady of Darkness. But I honestly, if you could compare them, because they're written by the same author, I do prefer Lady of Darkness over Reign of Shadows and Endings, just for, I think, the character-wise, it felt more like home than the other one did, and it sounds like I'm bashing the Legacy series. I am not whatsoever. I just think that these characters have a very different dynamic than the other ones. This is very much your assassin FMC goes on a journey, finds out that she has to do something else than what she originally planned, enlists the help of some of her friends, but also newcomers, and it is more reminiscent of Throne of Glass, I would say, which this got me so close to the Throne of Glass high, which again, Throne of Glass will forever be my all-time favorite series. I don't think anything can top it. It is one in a million, but this. The last book in the series, called Lady of Starfire, was the book that made me cry the most this year, just because I didn't want to leave my book family. There was something that happened that was really sad, but also made for a very heartfelt ending because of something else that happened. There's betrayal, there's revenge, there's journeys, there's new magic systems that you find out about that were previously like, oh, this didn't exist before. There's interesting family dynamics, and the way that our main character Scarlet grows through this is so lovely to witness, because in the first book she's very much driven by revenge, rage. She's not having a good time in life, but throughout her interactions with the people that she loves, she slowly changes and kind of steps into her own in a certain sense, and she's so snarky and funny. She's just somebody that, like, you just want to be friends with her, because she's a light, but in a way that, like, it's not like sunshine, sort of. She's not the most positive person, that's for sure, but it's so refreshing because she's so real, and I love that these characters feel so real. Scarlet and Razik and Cyrus were in my favorite characters of the entire year list from my last video, and they are from this series. I think these characters are just so lovable. This story is so gripping, and you just end up caring so much, and that is the best feeling when you're reading a fantasy series. This next book is Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. Now I feel like I recommend this one all the time on like my Instagram and TikTok, but I don't talk enough about it on my like long form videos. So here I am gonna be yapping about this one because this is a trilogy. This is also the old covers. I will put the new covers on screen. This is just traditionally published across the world, so don't go looking for this cover. But anyways, this trilogy hit so hard, and I think it's because there was a kind of, okay, I don't want to say like basic premise because it's not basic, but it turns into something that I have never seen done before in a fantasy book. It's almost like there's this symbiotic relationship of this one being that inhabits somebody else's body, and it makes for the most interesting storylines. The plot twist and the like all of the information when it converges, it's like, oh my god, this is crazy. That's who that is. I'm getting ahead of myself again. I think this book is a phenomenal place to start if you're looking for a romantasy that doesn't have a huge commitment, because it is a trilogy. But this book is about Tisana, and she is a slave in a land called I've not done synopsis for any of these so far. I feel like I talk about him enough though that you've kind of heard about all those anyway. So let me talk about this one. This is about a girl named Tisana, and she is a slave in a land called Threl, and she travels to another continent after she buys her freedom from her master so she can go train at this place called the Orders, which is a magical academy of sorts, and she wants to train her magic to be able to come home and free the other slaves. Now, she accidentally kind of gets involved in the war of these magic wielders and the other continent while she is training with Maxentarius Farleone. He is one of the most underrated male main characters ever. I do not think enough people talk about him and their relationship. I think Tisana is a very refreshing female main character because she still has that element of sunshine to her and positivity, and like she wants good things. At her core, she is so good, but she is willing to go these extreme lengths to achieve peace and freedom for the people that she loves and the people that she feels like she is responsible for almost, which she's not responsible for all the slaves in Thrall, but also she's like, she believes in her cause so much, and it's really inspiring to see her so dedicated to what she has going on. And then the introduction of this mysterious magical being and the symbiotic relationship, which I can't tell you about it because that's kind of a spoiler, but I want to tell you that much because it is so unique. And the multiple POV in the second book, a lot of people are like super confused about it in like the beginnings of it, but then once it all comes together, oh my god, it is so good, so satisfying. This is a series that wraps up perfectly, and I say that not lightly. I think it's very common for a lot of fantasy series to leave open-ended and you don't know what's really gonna happen next. You don't really know what the characters are up to. You don't know after the fact, after everything's said and done, what they're doing. But Mother of Death and Dawn, which is the third book, really goes into, there's like this epilogue or like last couple chapters that tells you years later what's going on, what they're doing, where these characters are, how they are. And I think that is such a great element of closure that I feel like I definitely needed because I've been reading so many unfinished series. Like I said, I feel like this is a really great place to start if you're looking for a romantasy that you can just binge, that is good characters, really good plot, and you don't want a like Throne of Glass length commitment. This is definitely gonna be for you. Now this next book is arguably one of my favorite reads, possibly the favorite read of my entire year. This is the Book of Azrael by Amber V. Nicole. I love this book so much. I think it is exactly what I was looking for, and it has elements that I feel like I wish other romantasy books had in them. For example, true enemies to lovers. And I say true, so I say it with my chest because they were legitimately trying to kill each other. In this first book, there's some torture scenes. They're trying to kill each other. They actually hate each other, and they are actual enemies. Like centuries of conflict past, these people are on opposite sides of a war. And I think that is what I'm looking for when I say I want enemies to lovers. And our female main character is the one that's morally gray, which, okay, I guess you could say that our male main character is also morally gray, but she is more so. She is more like, I'm gonna protect the people that I love at all costs. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to protect them. And there is literally nothing off limits for her. Absolutely nothing. I think that makes for a really interesting story. And I'm literally not even done with the series. Well, okay, I say I'm not even done with the series, but there's only 4 books out right now. I think there's gonna be 6, and I'm in the middle of the 3rd, and it is going so well. This also has multiple POV in it, and I eat up any new POV that we are given in any book, honestly. There is never a time that I've been like, oh, I wish I didn't have their POV. No, no, no. Give me more POVs. And I've lost count, I think, at this point of how many there are, which that's funny to say because I know a lot of people are like, they'd rather have just one or just dual POV. And I'm like, no, I want all sides of what's going on. I want to be deep in these characters' heads because these are some rich characters, confusing characters, but also there's found family, but also the plot is kind of crazy and there's plot twists and cliffhangers galore. But basically in this first book, we're following Diana and she is on a mission to find this book called The Book of Azrael. And she has to enlist the help of somebody that she really doesn't want to work with because if she doesn't find this book for the person that sent her on this quest, then he's gonna kill her sister. And she's like, well, I can't let that happen because she's the only person left on this planet that loves me. So it's a lot of questing, it's a lot of time with the characters, but it's still an interesting plot and there's still so much that happens. And the end of this book is mind-blowing. I did not expect her to write the ending that she did. And I'm like, after this book, I was like, what else does she have in store for us? Because if she's not afraid to do what she did in this book, I'm scared for the rest of the series. And like, okay, a good scared, because if there is an author that is not afraid to do something, that's a good story because it makes it entertaining and interesting and makes my emotions high. And there is definitely some high emotions in this book. The romance is so good. I love the male main character so much. I think he's got this like tortured past. He's not doing too hot in the first book with his like self-esteem wise, but then she kind of swoops in and she's like, oh, but actually, you know what? You're not so bad. After all of the I kind of want to murder you stuff. This is definitely dark and twisted, and I could see why not a lot of people would gravitate towards this because I do think this is a specific audience, but I have not heard a single bad review about this book so far, at least on my side of the internet. But it is definitely intense, so be mindful of that, but this is probably, like I said, this is probably one of my favorite reads of the entire year. I will never get over it. Next we have 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I read this one in January, I believe. It was a long time ago. I have not stopped thinking about it since. This is one of those surprising YA, okay, well, I don't want to say surprising because my sister told me to read it and she did not let me down. This one is so good. This is basically a bunch of criminal teenagers do a magical heist. That's all that I can say. No, it's not all I can say. This is like a group of misfit people that are not like the most upstanding citizens of society. They've kind of got their issues, they've got their trauma, they've got their past, and they all come together to form this group, and they have sort of a common goal because, you know, they have to live life, they have to pay their bills, they have to survive. And one of the main characters, Kaz Brecker, yearning, man. Yearning! Let me just read to you the group that we have going on here. A convict with a thirst for revenge, a sharpshooter who can't walk away from a wager, a runaway with a privileged past, a spy known as the Wraith, a heartrender using her magic to survive the slums, a thief with a gift for unlikely escapes. Now, you think about those kinds of things, and you put them together in a room, and it's like, how in the world are these people gonna work together? And you know what? You just gotta find out. This is actually in the same universe universe as Shadow and Bone, and I will be so forever angry that they discontinued the Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows show on Netflix, because oh my god, it was so good. Granted, I like Shadow and Bone. I'm obsessed with Six of Crows, and I'm so mad that they robbed us of this book, of the next book. This cliffhanger on this one also is kind of crazy. The second book made me sob so hard because these characters, you can't help but just love them. They've got chemistry. It's multiple POV. There's 6 POVs, hence Six of Crows. And it's interesting because it starts out as this like, oh, if you do this job, if you do this heist, you're gonna be rich beyond your wildest dreams. And it's like, it starts out as this like exciting thing, and then you get into the heist and you're like, oh, this is so much more serious than we thought. It is incredibly fast-paced. It's a duology, so you don't have to worry about not having the next book. You have both of them already. And I have yet to read King of Scars and Rule of Wolves, also by Leigh Bardugo. This has characters from this in that, and I think it's another duology, so I really need to go read that, because Leigh Bardugo, the way that she writes is so beautiful. And so like, yes, it's YA, but it's not feeling like she's talking to a teenager, if that makes any sense at all. And I've low-key considered getting a tattoo for this book series, if that tells you anything. Now, I'm not going to hold this one up the whole time because it is beefy and it is heavy, but this is Alchemised by Sen-Lin Yu. This is the traditionally published version of Manacled, and yes, I did read Manacled earlier this year. I loved it just as much. I thought it was phenomenal. This is one of the most dark and twisted and tragic stories I have ever read, but it's a standalone. Technically, yeah, sure, it's 1,000 pages, but like if you're looking for a standalone, then I have one for you. But this goes so deep into the cost of war and what it does to a person. Not just the cost of individual people, but the cost of society. And sure, yes, I get that it's fantasy. I get that this could never happen in our world. Like, it's fine. But the issues that's brought up in this book are so interesting and messy and just dirty, but also like, you can't help but turn the page. And it's not the most fast-paced. Obviously, there's 1,000 pages and it's standalone, so there's a lot that happens, but it's like... Now, this book is set up very interesting because the first part goes into where we are now. And this girl, her name is Helena, and she has no memories of the war, of what's actually going on. All she knows is she's been in this prison for a very long time, until one day she's taken out and told that she's going to be thrown into this repopulation program. So she's sent to this one guy's house who's kind of high up in this society on the evil side of the war, if you will. And so she's struggling to live her life with him, and there's some very tragic, very twisted things that go on, but because she doesn't have memories, they're trying to uncover what's really going on because she's very important to the war. The second part is actually her flashbacks. So you have the first part is now, second part is flashbacks, so you get what happened, and then you go back to the present with the current situation, and it's like the emotional damage and impact that the way that this story is written is so crazy. A lot of people are like, well, why don't you just read it in timeline order? No, no, no. This is one where normally, yes, I would say read it in timeline order. I'm an Assassin's Blade, read it first, and Throne of Glass order kind of person. But for this, the emotional impact that this has when you find out what's going on is crazy. And this book, I convinced my best friend to read it, and she has been in this very long reading slump, and it definitely pulled her out. She devoured this book. Granted, I think she's back in a slump because it was so good, but my point being, she hadn't read anything in a very long time, and she read this and she was completely consumed by it. I was completely consumed by it. It deserves every single bit of the hype, but it is yet another one where I'm like, just be careful with this one because it's not gonna be for everybody. This next book is The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. Now this one, I knew I was gonna like it, but I didn't know I was going to love it. This was definitely a 5 all of these are 5 stars. I feel like that goes without saying. But I read One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns, also by this author, and I really enjoyed them, and I really like the way that she writes her books in a very like eerie, atmospheric, unique, interesting kind of magic system way. That was a lot of words to describe what I was trying to say. I hope that made sense. But I was expecting a similar kind of atmosphere in this book, and it definitely delivered. This story is not very long, and it's gonna be another duology, so I'm very excited about that. But this is a book about a girl named Sybil, and she is basically one of 6 diviners at this cathedral, which basically means she can commune with the gods, have dreams, and read prophecies for people. But in this process, she has to drown to be able to do it. Like, legitimately, she has to drown to do this, which is not a great process. That doesn't sound very fun. But she's in this position because she was told from a young age that if she does this for the cathedral, then she will have a home, she will be taken care of, she will be fed, all of the above. But she doesn't remember any of her life before this. And so all of a sudden, one by one, her sisters, her other diviners, start going missing. And she's like, hey, this is actually so weird. And so basically what happens is this one knight, hence the knight, from another country comes to the cathedral with his king to have his prophecy read. But this knight is like not respectful of anything that they do. She's kind of like, well, who's this dude? But ends up being like, hey, actually, I need your help because something is going wrong. And they explore the outside world. And oh my god, I think that this book has one of my favorite characters in it. And oh, his story is so tragic. And it's one that like, you read it, you're like, oh, I love this character. And by the end, you're like, oh my god, you poor baby. But anyways, the way that this world is set up is very beautiful too. And you feel like you're really there. You feel like you can touch things that you're reading. You feel like you can hear it, you can smell it. She sets the scene in a way that's like, you know where you are. This is a very specific setting, and that's one of the things that I love about it. Is so immersive. It's definitely got that more gothic feeling, which I don't read a lot of gothic fantasy, but this is one that kind of made me want to branch out and explore more. Maybe start reading something like, I don't know, like Anathema by Carrie Lake and Fairy-Dale. It made me kind of want to go and explore those. So a book that makes you want to read another book is a good book. And this was such a good book. This next book is Heavenly Bodies by Amani Ariu. I love this book so much. I recently reread it in preparation for the second book, Fallen Stars, and I loved Fallen Stars even more. But all of these, I'm just including the first books in the series, just so you have some place to start. But this is another one where the world is beyond beautiful. I think I mentioned this in the Fallen Stars vlog that I did, that they literally have like cotton candy clouds. That's really freaking cool. But it's also got this element of like intense fantasy. This is, oh my god, it is such a good balance between romance and fantasy. It gives you enough of both where you're satisfied, not too much of one, not too little of one. And the romance is so good. The male main character is another one that just yearns for her and is, oh, I love him so much. Oh my god, now I'm sitting here like thinking about the story again. Also, the audiobook is really good. I reread it through listening to the audiobook. I won't go into too much detail about this one because I know I talk about this one a lot too, but I love how this story is basically, it's very celestial and based on stars, and the magic system kind of goes off of that. And I think that's part of why it's so beautiful, is because I just love the imagery of stars. The significance of stars in romantasy books cannot be overstated. Is that the right way to phrase it? I don't know. I feel like a lot of fantasy books, they do include imagery with stars, and I eat it up every time because it's always so beautiful. Just the concept of like heaven and beauty and the vastness of the universe, that's getting really deep. Oh my god. But anyways, their magic system is based on a set of like stars. The stars are the gods basically in their realm. And I think that is so interesting because it's not just like you have a couple gods or the gods are based on like elements, which I love elemental magic, but it is a refreshing base of a story. And in the second book, she kind of has her, I'm gonna go bat crazy kind of moment, and it is so satisfying. The second book has more POVs than what we got in this book, and I love that. This book is set in a very warm, sunny place. The second book is very sea heavy and nautical themed with like mermaids and sirens and stuff. And I think the contrast of those two books with it being in the same story is so interesting. And I think that because we're going to more places in this universe than we went in here, it makes for the plot expansion to be so good because we're finding out more pieces of information, we're going to new places, we're meeting new people. It's just, oh, I love everything about it. As you can tell, I annotated the crap out of this book. Okay, last but not least, I don't actually have a physical copy here with me because I am waiting for it to come out in paperback. But we have Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, guys. I should have included that one as my it made me cry the most. That and Lady of Starfire. Anyways, this was another one that this story was so tragic and I didn't even know what to expect out of this one because here's the thing. It's Haymitch's Hunger Games. So like obviously from the Hunger Games, we know he wins because he's a victor. We know a few things about the story, but we don't know the nitty gritty of it. We don't know the tiny details. And oh my God, it was for a prequel done so well. It was shocking. It made me cry. I feel for Haymitch so much. And I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, I'm so excited for the movie. And I'm like, honestly, I'm not excited. To see this on screen, are you kidding me? Are you gonna sit here and tell me that I have to watch that? I have to watch these things happen on screen. Oh my God. But obviously The Hunger Games is such a good series because yes, it's dystopian. It's, I guess you could call dystopian a little bit of fantasy. I don't know. Not really like the stereotypical fantasy, but it is. The dystopian aspect is really interesting with obviously the commentary on politics and the government and how things are run and how like, hey, we have to, as a society, we have to be watching out for these certain things. This is something that's messed up that happens in the government and like all that. I don't want to get too political on here, but like it's such a refreshing way to read about issues in our world because no, obviously the Hunger Games aren't real, but as far as like the basis of humanity and how they got to the Hunger Games, how their society was built is eerily similar to what we're facing in this world today. And I think those are some of the most interesting books to read is if they do have some connections to the real world and talk about some of these issues. But then you do it in a way that's like tragic and like kind of makes you forget about reality just for a second because of the characters, because of this, oh my God, these characters. Oh, this movie is gonna be so terrible. It's gonna be so good, but it's gonna be so terrible. This is a book also that I feel like I would reread only to refresh my memory. I don't think I could live this story again because it just hurts so much. I don't know, I guess it's still close to my heart though, because it's one of the only series that I read like growing up, I would say. I read this a long time ago. I reread it recently because I wanted to refresh my memory since getting back into reading, but also like I was not a reader growing up, but I did read these books and I remember loving them and I remember like reading them and not fully understanding the impact that these books have and what they were written for, and now rereading them as an adult was a crazy experience, and I would definitely recommend that to anybody. Even if you've read it in your middle school, high school years, guys, reread it again. I promise you that it's gonna hit so much harder the second time. But that is all that I have for you today, my friends. That is all for the entire year. Oh my God. I could do the dad joke and be like, see you next year. I'm gonna do it. Okay, I love you guys. Thank you for coming on this crazy journey with me this year. I loved getting to yap with you about all my favorite books, and I will see you next year.